Got a video for you today that has to do with overlooked controls when it comes to handling fold downs for Dolby Atmos and how some of that stuff works. This was originally part of a longer video that I filmed late last year, and it wasn't good. The whole thing wasn't good, and it was too long. But the information in this section, I think, is important and will be helpful for you if you're working in Atmos. So I've got that for you today. Before we jump in, first of all, thanks so much for coming by and checking out the video. If you're new to the channel, there's a whole bunch of links and affiliate stuff down below. And if you want to get in touch with me to get help with your mixes in any way, you can do that through the links below. I always appreciate it if you check that stuff out. But let's jump into this video. So I want to show you something here when it comes to these fold downs, especially with the 5.1, because there are overlooked controls that a lot of engineers never touch, and that's the trims and the down mixes. These are really important, and I want to show you why and kind of what's going on with the mix when it's folding down. So for this example, I have a test tone that is being sent to an object. We can see the panning of it right down here. Right now, I have it on the sides. It's just like basically an object that would be going to this side speaker. We're not going to listen to this tone because it's a 1K tone and it would be horrible. So I have set up a bunch of different re-renders here. So we've got a 7.1 re-render here, then we've got a 5.1, and then we've got the 2.0 re-render. This is the stereo, quote-unquote, version that Atmos will actually reproduce probably in a consumer device. So there's that stereo version, and then we've got the 2.0 direct here just for comparison. Now, the window I have down here is our trim and down mix settings, and I'm going to show you how this can change the mix quite a bit. So right now, I have it set to direct render. Direct render is, well, it's a recommended setting. And if you've watched some of my videos for a while on Atmos, you know I have bagged on direct render a lot because I think direct render with room balance sounds better. Well, I did. Some people have been swaying me a little bit. I'm not necessarily as hung up on direct render with room balance as I once was. I believe personally, though, you should be checking both of these to see which one works best for the mix you're working on, because depending on how you are approaching the Atmos mix, one of those versions may work better than the other. And it should be up to the mixers and the artists and the producers to decide which one works better. Putting your foot down on this, I mean, I've done it and I eat my words every time. So the option exists for a reason. I think you need to check both. Now, what I want you to look at here, just right off the bat, is the levels here. So when we're in direct render, if we have something panned to the sides, direct render splits that between the front and the rear surround. This is one of my issues with direct render because we're creating a quote-unquote phantom image on the sides. But phantom images on the side don't work the way a phantom image in front of us works. Doesn't work the same because our ears aren't oriented that way. We've got our ears on the side of our heads. If we wanted a phantom image to work on the side, we would need ears in front and in back of our heads, and we don't have them there, so the phantom image doesn't work quite the same. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't work at all. It's just not exactly what people think it is going to do. And one of the big issues that I have with a lot of immersive mixes are the phase issues that happen when we start putting the same material into multiple speakers. And that's exactly what happens with direct render. If we switch over to direct render with room balance, all of that stuff in the side gets put into the rear surround. In a lot of my mixes, I prefer the way that sounds. It's a cleaner mix, in my opinion, because there's no phase issues happening between the front and the surround speaker. It's not always the best solution. I'll admit it now because I've had some mixes and I did not like the way direct render with room balance works. The other issue that we can potentially run into with this is the way people set up their surround speakers varies quite a bit. The sort of cinema approach to the surrounds would be to have it right on the sides. Most people in their homes, though, they put it behind. So for me, when I'm mixing, I like using the sides quite a bit. And a lot of times I will put stuff into those sides that's kind of important in the mix. Sometimes when it folds into the rear surrounds, if I'm in direct render with room balance, it's cool. It feels good. It feels immersive. It works. Sometimes, though, it doesn't work. Sometimes that material, to me, when you go into 5.1, it feels like it should go more towards the front. And with direct render with room balance, you can't really do anything about that. But in direct render, we can. And this is something that some other engineers have really been turning me on to, that I've been playing around with, that I have found helpful. So if we go into direct render, so you can just see it did an even split between the left front and the left surround. Down here, though, on our downmix settings, this 5.1 and 2.0, this listener plane control to me is a pretty cool tool. If I want to weight stuff so that those sides go a little bit more towards the front, I can start playing with this percentage here. I think 56 is usually where I land right now. And what that's doing is it's putting more level in the front than in the rear. When I start adjusting the listener plane, it helps me make these mixes that I feel like they should feel like there's more from the front. It helps push it forward. And I tend to like that. And I should mention, when I'm listening to 5.1 in here, I have two different settings on my monitor controller. I have one setting that puts the surrounds in my rear speakers. I have another setting that puts them in the sides. Those are the ones I use the most. I also have a third setting that I use every once in a while that puts the surrounds into both of those speakers and kind of balances them out. So I have three ways, actually, to listen to a 5.1 in here. I think you only really need one. And what I would probably do, if I only had one way of listening to 5.1, I would put the surrounds in the rears. That's more of what home theaters are supposed to be set up like. If you follow the guides, the rear speaker positions is typically closer to where they would be. But if you can set it up so that you can monitor the other way too, I don't think it hurts. And, when I asked post guys about this, there wasn't a consensus on which way you should listen to the 5.1. So you might have to decide for yourself. Now, one other thing I want to show you with this direct render with room balance, what happens if we pan this object to the rear left, and if I pan it back to the left, now everything goes all the way to the back. The listener plane controls don't affect stuff that was panned to the rear at all. Now, if I go to direct render with room balance, we don't see any change back there. And the direct render with room balance controls, if I pan this back to the center on the sides, I should say, this listener plane doesn't really have any difference. It doesn't really change the sides at all. Whereas if I put this into direct render, now we have a little bit more control over where we want the side information to go in the 5.1. Here's where things get a little interesting, though. If you are thinking about how that 5.1 is going to fold down into stereo, the choice between direct render or direct render with room balance is going to have a big effect on that. So right now we're in direct render, and what we can see here is we're at about neg 18.4 for everything. Really, we should be at neg 20, though. So because of the way this is working, we're getting more level. We've got about 1.5 dB up from where I would put things. Like if we look at the direct render, we're right at -20. Everything's at -20. So we're getting 1.5 dB on this 2.0 re-render. Is that good or bad? Hard to say. It's going to depend on the mix. Now, if we go to direct render with room balance, now we're 3 dB down. Now, this has to do with the way the fold down from 5.1 to 2.0 works, and I've talked about this, I know, in other videos, so I'm not going to get into it here. So this is the other thing to me with direct render. To me, direct render works better when you are going down to stereo. I wish there was a way to get rid of this little bump that's happening. The only way that I've noticed to kind of get that bump down is to start playing with this listener plane, but you have to shift things backwards. So if I go back like to 56%, now we're only 0.5 dB up. Let's see, if we go 63, 63 is closer. I'm going to say 75 is going to be the winner. Yeah, so if we shift the listener plane back 75%, now we get the fold down closer to the way you'd think it would be. But in the 5.1, it's going to pull it back, which is not generally what I want. Your mileage may, of course, vary, though, so I would just highly recommend that you play with your trims and down mixes. Check out these listener plane controls and see what happens. I know on these levels here, we're looking at math and it's not all balancing out, but don't worry about that so much because perceptually, sometimes some of these differences, when everything folds down, they don't really matter the way you might think they do. The other thing I would say about the re-renders and checking your mixes, I think you have to give some grace in the way things fold down. If you are looking for some absolute perfection thing in your mind, well, it's not going to be out there. You're going to notice this on headphones as well. The Dolby binaural and spatial audio, they do not sound the same. I know I did recent videos demonstrating that. They're different, and that's the way it's going to be. So I think it's important to not get hung up too much. Don't get too hung up on how things translate exactly. Make sure the spirit of the mix is there. Make sure that the primary balance kind of stays relatively the same. Is the vocal where it's supposed to be? Are the lead elements and the melodic elements that you're trying to highlight, are they all still where they need to be? A lot of this stuff, it kind of works itself out. I hate to say it. And, you know, your mileage may vary on this, but don't sweat some of this too much. The other thing I would say is be really careful about making adjustments for all of these fold downs. I mean, yeah, go ahead and tweak a little bit, but I would approach the alternate fold downs, the re-renders, more as an alternate set of monitors. It's like checking on Oratones in a way, or, you know, maybe NS10s or whatever your kind of lower level monitor is. To me, that's what checking these is a lot of the time. I'm trying to make sure that everything still kind of holds up and works well together. It's not going to be quite the same because we're going from a bigger format to a smaller format. So there you go, some stuff on the fold downs and the trims and down mix controls. I hope you found that helpful. I hope you found it useful. I'd love to know, though, what do you tend to do with the trims and down mixes? Do you even touch them? Please leave a comment down below. And if you've got other questions and things you want help with Dolby Atmos, you think there's something that I could do a video on, put that down there below. I'm always looking for ideas. But thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.